Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies. I suspect the males will join us soon. Good afternoon, and welcome to another session that we have, another Lunch and Learn. So today we have with us, helping me, Miss Raquel Watson. So she is our newest admin support, and so I'm just going to ask her very quickly to open her camera, and there she is. So she's the person who will be assisting me today with just checking the messages when I start checking if there are any messages or responding if there are any raised hands. So my name is Michelle Stewart-McKoy, and I am taking us through another session on how we can make feedback engaging for our students. And I am going to share my screen. We are using Vocaroo today. I don't know how many persons are familiar with it, but it's a very simple, easy to use tool. And we're going to look at how we can capitalize on it in giving feedback to our students. So let me just put this in slideshow mode. As usual, I'm using two devices. So if I turn away, it's simply because I'm using the second monitor. Right? So you should be seeing, let me know if you are seeing.
Yes, we are.
All right, great. So we're looking at how to create quick and easy feedback using this tool called Vocaroo. Now, we have something called a feedback challenge. What has happened is that when we think about giving written feedback, it's time consuming for us. It's often misinterpreted by a number of our students because there are some things that they're not so clear on. It lacks a kind of connection because by the time you put emotions and so forth in there, it gets lost and you lose the idea of the feedback that you're given. And then, of course, there is limited interaction and engagement from our students. So there is research. So research consistently tells us that audio feedback offers significant advantages over the traditional written comments. And so we have studies from researchers such as ICE and colleagues in 2007, and there is work from McCarthy in 2015, where they say that students have demonstrated that they are 3 times more likely to engage with audio feedback when compared to just written feedback. So the research is there. There is also work done by Lunt and Coran in 2010, where they say that 75% of the students in the study that they had done preferred audio feedback over written feedback. So there is potential for audio feedback. Audio feedback naturally conveys the tone and the nuance in ways the text cannot. There's no way text can capture excitement apart from putting an exclamation sign, which still doesn't, come across fully. And then students have reported that they feel a stronger connection with their facilitators who use voice recordings in giving them feedback. And then from our perspective as facilitators, we can actually provide more detailed feedback in less time because speaking is actually faster than typing. So there is information that says that we speak about 210 to 250 words a minute, whereas we tend to type or write between 30 and I think 60 words per minute. So when we give audio feedback, we definitely get more feedback in than we do. So than we do if we were writing. So there is that perception. Now, if we're going to think about why feedback work, let's break it down so that we can, have a better picture of it. First of all, it's inherently more personal. Okay, so students hear your voice, they hear your enthusiasm, and they get that kind of authentic reaction to your voice, to their work, via your voice. So it's like having a one-on-one conversation, if you think of it like that way, instead of receiving a written evaluation. The second space, it's more effective if you're providing all feedback, because the average, we just spoke about that, the average person speaks more words per minute than he or she can type. So it means that you can deliver about 3 to 3.5 times more content the same amount of time that it would take for you to write. And then, of course, the third point here is that it's better comprehension. So when you think about it, audio conveys the tone, the emphasis, the nuances. And so the student can immediately tell whether or not a suggestion is a major point or a minor point, whether or not it is something that they have to attend to right away, just based on the inflection that you bring about. The student can easily tell this is something that you're suggesting based on how you use the voice. And then, of course, audio feedback supports accessibility for many students, especially for those who are auditory learners and those who may have some kind of reading challenges, because some students don't, or not all students read at the same level. So if they're listening, it may be more beneficial for them. And then, of course, there is the emotional connection. The way your voice speaks to certain aspects of the student's work conveys care, conveys excitement, conveys passion. And it's an investment that many students in the research that has been done said that they appreciate. And so, of course, when we think about that, there is no way writing feedback can actually capture that. So these are some of the reasons how audio feedback makes sense. Now, there are many different audio tools that we can use, but Vocaroo, it has a name, I know. Vocaroo stands out based on its simplicity. So it has no learning curve. All right. So if you start wondering, if this is something hard, no. If you can click a button, you can use Vocaroo. So we're going to just take a quick look at some of the key features that make it ideal for educational use. So first of all, it's completely free. There are no hidden fees. There are no premium fees. It's free. Okay. There's a section where they say if you wish to donate, you can, but it's free. No obligations whatsoever. And then you don't have to register. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to create an account. You don't have to put in password. You simply go to the website and you start recording. And we're going to go to the website in a few. And then when it comes on to sharing, it's very easy to share. When you're finished recording, it creates a link and you can share the link via WhatsApp, via email, via Facebook, via different social media sites. All right, so that's one. You can download it. You can generate a QR code. There are different ways that you can share the information that's there. And if you download it, you can share it with your students, or you can upload it to the VLE, the learning management system that we use, Moodle. All right, we can into different course assignment. We can create a link in a Word document and share that with your students. So there are different ways, very simple ways that you can share the audio feedback. Okay, and then the other thing is that when you download it, I think it downloads only as MP3. I don't think it downloads as a WAV file. But if you want to use convert it to a WAV file, they also give you a section with a FAQ, frequently asked questions, where they take you through how you can convert it to a different format. If you want to keep, so on the site, when you generate your audio, you can keep the recordings up to 6 months. All right. Now, after 6 months, it expires, but you can download, you can inform your students that the recording on the site will only be for 6 months. Or if you're downloading it and uploading it to the VLE, you don't have any issues there. You probably want to say to the students that before the 6 month expires, if you want to keep it for permanence, you need to download it. And the same with the VLE. After the student passes through a course, they won't have access to the container anymore. So it's good for you to say, if you feel that this audio feedback is useful, download it so that you can have it. And then, of course, there's no software to install. It works on almost any device that you have once it has a microphone. And from a privacy perspective, you don't have to enter any student's name. No personal information is required of you or students, because you can use it. Even though we're using it for feedback purposes, you can have it where your students can use audio responses. And so this is also something that's important as it relates to privacy. But furthermore, the links that are generated, they tell us that these are unlisted and they're not searchable. So you can't just copy the link and put it somewhere and search for it. You will not find it. But, you know, as a precaution, they also want you to know that the links are not password protected. All right. So these are some of the things about Vocaroo. And then before we go over to take a look at it, we also don't need to point out to you that when you put using the Vocaroo, there are several ways that you can think of using it in your courses. All right. So for assignments, you can, and of course, we had looked at the new VLE, the Moodle version that we're using now, and the particular editor that allows us to record audio. But beyond that, if you use the Vocaroo platform, you can actually give feedback to assignments that students submit. So instead of writing something like this particular piece of work is interesting, but your thesis needs work, you can explain exactly what about the thesis statement that the student has put strengthening. And then you can provide examples in your audio feedback so that the students can go back and revise. All right. You can provide general feedback to students. So if you find that there is a common error that runs through the submissions that your students have given, you can use one audio recording to address that or other common issues. After you have gone through a series of assignments, you can probably record one single message on what you have noticed throughout the different assignments, the high points and the areas that will need adjustments. And then of course you can give quick responses to drafts, because we're, you know, with the whole idea of the generative AI disruption, you find that we are recommending more and more a process-based approach to assignments and goals and tasks. And so if you go that route, you'll find that it is relatively easy for us to give audio feedback on drafts so students can see where they're doing, what they need to improve on, do so, and then you can give another round of responses. And so these are some ways that we can think about using it. Of course, these are just a few ideas that I'm throwing out there. You can think of other ways of using your voice to help students understand the content and to clarify any concepts, any areas, any gray or black areas in students' work, and do it, you know, with a certain flair, something that the written feedback cannot do as well. But beyond assignments, we notice that we have communication. We can also use the audio, you know, to give, you know, we can do the recording to give a shout out to students on a particular day, to highlight outstanding students, to give general course announcements so that the students don't have to go through and read the lengthy pieces of information that you have. They can just simply download it, listen to it on their mobile devices, that sort of thing. If you're sending emails and you know, sometimes I send emails and I have in the bracket lengthy emails, I could easily capture that in an audio recording. So there are different ways that we can use it. So we talk about the assignments, so we talk about communication. And of course, for group projects, you know, it's a good way for you to do one recording that the entire group gets, instead of you doing and posting and doing all the details for the different persons in a group. You can start with one audio recording, or even more than one. It's just that you'd be able to get more details in. And so these are some of the ways we can think about. But then we also think about, if we're using it with the VLE, what can we use it with? For any assignment that requires, or any piece of information that requires you to give a lot of text, you can use it. So for your text and media area, which was formerly the label, you can use it. For your pages, you can put it here. In the book feature, you can put it in the lesson here. In one of our sessions, you can use the audio. All right. So there are a number of things that we need to consider that we can use with the audio feedback. I keep getting that my internet is unstable, so I do hope that I'm still coming across clear enough to you. All right. So let's just think about when we're going to put our audio feedback together. So we're going to look at some areas, 3 particular areas, and then we're going to listen to a recording that I did for a student's assignment. So this is a sample student, fictitious, please note, and the name that is mentioned is my name. And so we're going to listen to that, and it's a reflection of what it is that we need to bear in mind. Remember, this is not exhaustive and it is not the be all and end all. So one of the things we need to consider first when we're giving our audio feedback. So it's not so much about the audio, it's more about the feedback. We're simply using the audio as the channel in this particular case. So when we talk about the content structure, it means how do we organize the content that we're giving feedback. So one of the things that we are always told, and I am encouraging us to do, is 1, begin with an introduction. So you start with the student's name and the assignment that you are giving the feedback on. And then you give some general overview or your general impression of the work that the student has done. And then you highlight the specific strengths. So you're going to highlight the positive aspects of the assignment, and then you're going to look at the concerns constructively. So this is where the different types of feedback would come in. Not so much the verification, but you could have some verification feedback in there, but more so the elaborative feedback, constructive or the strategic feedback, and definitely the metacognitive feedback, because we want our students to be able to reflect on what it is that they have done and how they move forward. And then, of course, you give guidance for revision. You have to think about the actions that the students need to take and give these in suggestion format to the students. And then you wrap it all up. So you end with some encouragement, and then you list what the student is supposed to do in order to improve the paper or for the next step. Now, when we think about the delivery, we're thinking more about the particular packaging now, right? So we have to think about the length. The experts know that for multimedia recording, keep it between 3 and 5 minutes, all right? So you're gonna also do so for the audio recording. Ensure that your recordings are between 3 and 5. You know, the shorter, the better. Keep it as concise as possible, ensuring that you give all the details that you need. And then your tone should be conversational. It should be supportive. It shouldn't be condescending or too harsh, because you want the student to think of this as a conversation and not so much a condemnation, right? And then pace what you say. So you're going to speak clearly and you're going to speak at a moderate tone. Don't rush it. If you feel that you're nervous and your heart is beating erratically, drink some water, slow down, restart your recording. And then you need to be specific. So you make reference to specific aspects of the student's assignment as you are going through. And you're going to balance the positive feedback with constructive feedback. So you have your critique, but you also talk about, you start with your strengths, and then you talk about the areas that will need improvement. And then you'll have to find somewhere that is quiet enough. So if you're in a classroom where there is a lot of noise, or you're near the football field, or you're in an office where there is a meeting, is that this is going to be distraction, and you don't need this if you're trying to give student feedback. So find somewhere that is relatively quiet, find an environment that's quiet and that has minimal. We're not saying that you're going to find somewhere that is absolutely quiet, but make sure that any background noise is kept at a minimum. And the other thing that we tend to do when we start on a new tool, we tend to aim for perfection. At this point, we're just giving feedback, so we should try to ensure that we're as natural as possible. If you stutter in there, that is fine, because we do that, you know. And if you pause a little longish, don't restart it, because when you're talking to your students and you're thinking, we do pause. So make it as authentic, make it as real as possible. And then the third point here is student preparation. When we're talking about student preparation, we're talking about how exactly do we prepare our student. So we have to set basic expectations for them. Tell them why is it you're using audio feedback. feedback and not reading feedback. Okay. So you may want to tell them that, or maybe because you know that they are having a challenge with reading, but give them some kind of indication of why it is you're using audio feedback and provide clear instructions. This is in whatever type of feedback you're giving, but particularly so in your audio. So guide them on how to access recordings if you have it on the VLE, having it somewhere else. Tell them where to go and look for it. And this, of course, is before you actually do the recording or before you give them audio. And then you may want to say to students, use your earphones so that, you know, you have that kind of channeled audio. So use your earphones, use your headphones, so that you have that kind of privacy when you're listening to the recording. And advise them to take notes. So they may want to jot certain key points down while they're listening, and encourage them to ask questions about the feedback that you give them, because you want to have that kind of conversation going. And if after you have given the feedback, you just do a very informal follow-up and check with the students to see if they have actually accessed the record, if they understand what it is that you have said to them, and so forth. So there is that aspect of follow-up, and it belongs to a bigger ecosystem that is referred to as feedback literacy, where we help our students to understand the feedback so that they can respond to it accordingly. All right. Now, I think when I shared the audio, but let me just do a quick check to make sure I did. Yes, I did. All right, so I'm going to play a recording that I did a little earlier, giving audio feedback using Vocaroo. And what I did was I actually downloaded the Vocaroo and embedded it into my PowerPoint. And so I'm going to share with you. And if you listen, you'll realize that I tried to ensure that I tell the students why it is I'm using the audio, and I use a variety of different feedback strategies, formats, so that the student can be clear. And then I ended up with what the student should be doing. The course is my fictitious course, game-based learning in the Caribbean. And the student who I'm responding to, I actually used my name to ensure that I am not using any student. So let me play for you.
Hi, Alison. I have gone through your proposal and I wanted to give you some audio feedback because I think it will help me to explain my thoughts a little more clearly. Now, first of all, I want to commend you on the creative concept for the game focused on Caribbean folklore and mythology. Your proposal that you submitted is to create an adventure game featuring Anansi, and this shows excellent cultural awareness and represents the kind of indigenous knowledge that we've been discussing in class. I particularly liked how you connected the traditional storytelling elements with the modern gaming mechanics. The learning objectives that you outlined, they're well done. And your goal to help students understand the moral lessons in Anansi stories while developing problem solving skills is thoughtfully conceived. I really enjoyed that. Your progression from simple puzzles to more complex challenges aligns well with the scaffolding principles that we covered in just a few days ago. So this was excellent. I really loved your implementation plan because it demonstrates good preliminary research. And I like that you chose Construct 3 as your development platform because this gives you enough time given your timeline and it does not demand too much given your current skill level. And the character sketches you included, wow, they showed a lot of promise. Although I would encourage you to think a little bit more about incorporating visual elements from Caribbean arts traditions. Remember that this is game based learning in the Caribbean. There are a few areas, just a few areas that I think a proposal could be strengthened. Okay, so in the first place, the target audience needs to be a little more specific. So you mentioned primary school students, but this covers such a wide age range and varying abilities. So one of the things you could think about is narrowing this to a specific grade level or a specific age group, and then you explain why your game design is appropriate for this developmental stage. The other thing is that your assessment strategy, although good, it could benefit from a little more development. So, yes, you identified that you will be tracking player progress, but what specific metrics are you thinking of that would indicate that learning has actually occurred? And how will you know if the players have understood the cultural lessons that you're trying to convey? All right, so think closely on that assessment strategy. And then the last thing is that I'd love to see a tighter connection to the readings that we have covered in class on culturally responsive game design. Remember our discussion on Devlin's work in, that discussion on avoiding cultural appropriation in educational games. Your proposal could be stronger if you explicitly address how you're approaching cultural representations respectfully. So, all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed this. You have clear evidence that you know what you're doing and you're engaging deeply with the course material. Your approach to blending the whole cultural heritage with game based learning principles shows creativity and a lot of academic rigor. Well done. So, for the next couple of steps, this is what I'm going to suggest. You go back at the proposal and you look at the target audience, refine your target audience description, make it tighter. Develop a more specific learning assessment strategy, right? So you may have one or two, but make sure that it's very specific and it shows how exactly you're going to know that learning has occurred. And then the last thing, look again at the connections between our course readings and what you have on cultural responsiveness. One of the things you could do, you could reach out to the Cultural Studies Department. I think it is Dr. Jones Williams. This person is an expert in Caribbean folklore. You could have a little discussion. So I'm really looking forward to how this develops. And if you have any concerns whatsoever, just reach out to me. Send me an email. We still have the group WhatsApp, or swing by the office. Well done. I really enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to what the final product would look like.
All right. So all of that, I've stopped sharing. All of that was 4 minutes and 13 seconds, I think. As you can see, that was quite a bit of information that was put in, something that couldn't have been done with a page or two. Any comments on what the feedback, what you thought of the audio feedback, just quickly. And then we're going to jump over to Vocaroo. Oh, good. We're good on time. Any comments? You don't all have to go at once. Just open your mic and talk.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I think, yes, it covers everything what you explained. I love the fact that you make a mix between positive and, the strength and the weakness of the student. And uh, you can notice how the voice, the change of voices, the intonation for the student to feel like is being criticized is just a proper feedback that is actually uh, correcting, but correcting in a way that it doesn't feel like that, because the encouragement towards the final product, what it can be done to actually do better, and that actually the student probably will enjoy more, go deep and research more. And I love that fact, because yeah, the way that the audio, when we give this type of feedback, is definitely a different way. And if I will be the student, uh, remember my time of a student, I will definitely enjoy this more, because I can feel the teacher. I can, you know, it's like I'm seeing through her voice. And that's something that I love. Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I love that final statement. You can see through her voice. I love it. Anybody else? Any other comments? All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to jump across to Vocaroo. All right. So what you would do, you would go to vocaroo.com. So here I am at vocaroo.com. As you can see, the interface is very simple. Now, remember, we are focusing on audio feedback, but you can use the platform for any kind of audio recording that you want. You can use it for your students to do audio projects, podcasts, anything like that. And the limit, there is no time limit based on the last updates that I'm aware of. And the recordings, as I mentioned before, are kept for up to 6 months. All right. So when you come here, you'll see Vocaroo, you'll see upload, because you can actually upload audios, but we're not interested in uploading audio files. You're interested in recording. So this big red button that you cannot miss in the middle of the page, there's nothing else there, and all you need to do is click. Now, if you haven't used it before, when you click on it for the first time, it's going to start recording me. But when you click, you will get a message somewhere up here that says that it wants to do you give permission to use your microphone? You will have to say yes, so that it can use your microphone to start the recording. So that is one of the first things that we need to bear in mind. We need to say yes. All right. Now, if you start recording and you're not happy, you want to restart, when it stops, you simply click the restart button. All right. So this is all there is to recording using Vocaroo. There's nothing complex about it. You simply click the red button, start recording, and when you're finished, you click the stop button. That's all there is to it. Now, when you're finished, you will realize that there is a settings icon here. If you click on it, it gives you two options. You can remove any background noise, but be careful how you use this, because the background sounds tend to be a little bit tinny after you have removed it. So you would have to test it, and then you can adjust the audio. Both are turned on. All right. So if you test it, you do your replay and you're not too happy with it, you can easily change that. And to get rid of it, you click anywhere on your screen. The other part that is going to be important, and I hope I'm not rushing. Let me know if I'm going too fast or if I'm missing a step, has to do with saving and sharing. Okay. And so in order to save and share, you click on that aspect, and then you'll see a message that says saving. Now, remember when I told you that it generates a link? Here is your link. So you can simply copy this link and paste it in the student's assignment, paste it on the VLE, paste it in the forum response you're giving to students. Anywhere, you can simply copy and paste this, and it will carry the student here to the Vocaroo page where the student will listen. So this is if you're copying it. If you're going to use Facebook, which I probably would caution you again, besides most of our students are not using Facebook anymore. So you have you can share it to Facebook, you can share it to X, formerly Twitter. I don't know what this one is, and I did not test it. I must be honest. I need to check it out. And then you can also share it to WhatsApp. If you are using the WhatsApp web, is the web-based version of WhatsApp. Simply click on it, find the student you want to share it with. If you have your students in a WhatsApp group, you can respond privately. All right. And then of course you have email. If you click on that, you put in your student's email address and you simply put a message in and you send it out. The student will get the link. Then of course you can click on QR code, because a number of our students are using their mobile devices and are using QR codes. You can generate a QR code, save it, and just share that with your students. All right. And then of course, the most important part is if you're going to download it for sharing, you click on the download and a message will come up asking where it is you want to save it and the name of it. naming convention is going to be important. So you'll have to save it, ensuring that it's not Vocaroo and just the date. So you may probably want to put the student ID number, the name of the assignment, something that makes sense as it relates to organization. And as you can see, it is saved as an MP3 file. All right, so let me just save that. All right. Now, if you have done your recording and you don't want to keep it for whatever reason, you simply click on delete. Okay, and then it gives you a message that says that, okay, it's going to be a permanent delete. Are you sure it will not be recovered? And if you're sure, you simply click delete this audio and it will delete it from the interface. How simple was that? All right, so that is all there is to using Vocaroo. But what we need to remember is that we're using it for feedback. Now, we still have 15 minutes, about 17 minutes. So I want any one person to record something, some kind of feedback, informal or otherwise, that you would give with us to your students and share with us, just to make sure that you have gotten the steps. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to ask for a volunteer. Anybody want to volunteer? Nobody? I'm not even sure if you're hearing me at this point because everybody's mic is muted and nobody's responding.
We're hearing. We're hearing
Okay,
and
do
just
I
not
have,
volunteering.
so do I have a volunteer?
Okay, I can do one quickly. I have it open right now.
All right. Would you like to share
Let
your
me do-
screen?
Yeah, no problem. Then
Okay, great.
let me share. All right, let me. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let me start. Hola, buenas tardes, Alden. Espero que estés bien. Well, I wanted to talk to you about the assignment that we did last Tuesday. If you remember, it was about past tense, and I'm making sure to send you this voice feedback so you understand clearly what were your strengths and what you could improve for next assignment. All right. So in this case, remember that when you use past tense in Spanish, there are different endings, and you have to pay attention to the different verbs like AR, ER, and IR. And that is important that you pay attention to the the endings that you are going to add for the different verbs. And in this case, remember that the verbs that we use were the regular verbs. Right. Okay, so let's what okay, so I can copy the link.
All right, so one of the
And I
things
can share it.
that I didn't do when I was doing my recording, I didn't play back so I could hear it. It's always a good
Oh, yeah.
practice to
Oh,
play back. All
yes.
right, and so you have shared the link with us. So even in a simple informal setting like this, you can easily share so that they can click on it and it will take them to. So I noticed that you have shared the link in the chat. And so what others would do is simply click on the link. So I have just clicked on the link and it takes me to Vocaroo, and then it has a little, I'm going to stop your sharing
I'm
for a
going to
little bit
stop
so
sharing.
that,
Yes.
all right.
Yes.
So I'm just going to show what happens when your students click on it when you share the link. All right. So if you share the link to them, this is what comes up. So it carries them here and they see the throbbing thing, which means click here. So they would click on that. And then they would listen to the recording. And if they want to download it, they can download it. So that is one of the beautiful things about when you share the Vocaroo link. All right. So that is something that we could think about, sharing the link or downloading and using other ways of sharing the link. All right. So let me wrap up with what it is that we have covered. You know, one of the things when I was listening to you, Yalet, is that I thought that the audio feedback would be excellent, especially as it relates to pronunciation of foreign languages. So for students who are learning French, Chinese, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, the audio feed would be even better than simply writing a word and putting accent and putting something that says, remember that there is a stress. You could simply say hable and not hable so that the students see exactly how that works out. And of course, for communication arts, that is also something for oral communication. You giving feedback and giving exactly the intonation and the pronunciation, audio feedback captures it so much better than written feedback. All right, so let me just wrap up then. A couple of reminders. So remember that there are other tools that we can use, but Vocaroo has that simplicity. All you need to do is go to the site, click on the red button, record, stop, download. Okay, but before you start recording or thinking of giving audio feedback, you have to plan out what it is you're going to say. So you have a mental outline and you plan exactly the areas that you're going to cover with your students. Of course, you try to find a quiet place where you can minimize background and you test your microphone to make sure that you can do a quick recording and you play back to ensure that the quality that the students are getting is good quality. And then keep each student's work open so that you can quickly reference specific sections that you want to talk about. So this is before you start the recording. When you start the recording, remember, start with the student name because you want to make it personal and you want to start that connection with the student from early. And keep it concise, between 3 and 5 minutes. Be conversational, be natural. You're not going to be over-friendly, but you're going to ensure that it's a tone that is supportive and encouraging. And then while you're going through, don't just focus on the bad aspects, what needs improvement. Balance it. So use critique and use praise as you go through. Highlight the strengths and the areas for weakness. And then you make reference to specific areas in the student work. So point out a particular aspect that was well done or needs improvement. Make direct links to the student's work by pulling specific areas from the mission. And when you're finished with your recording, you then listen before you send it off. Listen before you share the link. Ensure that it is clear and that your tone is not aggressive, but rather supportive and conversational. And then you organize your link. So each time you do your recording and you save it, you're going to want to ensure that you name it properly so that the recording goes to the student that it should go to. Okay. And ensure that you tell the students that they should listen to the feedback before they start asking questions, because I don't know if your students are like this, but some of my students, I get the feedback and then start asking questions even before they look at it. So encourage your students to feedback and then to make notes so that if there are any questions they want to ask after they have listened to the feedback, they can do so. And ask the students how they feel about the audio feedback. Ask them if they prefer the audio over the written. And of course, this has research potential, as facilitators encourage to research. And then remember to remind the students that if they want to keep this, they should download it, whether it's from the VLE or from the Vocaroo platform. So essentially, we should set our goals, determine what it is we want to get from using audio feedback. We're not just going to use audio feedback for the sake of using audio feedback. The Vocaroo is just another tool. But set your goals so you decide what exactly it is you want to get out of this audio feedback. Start small. It was ambition that killed Caesar. So start with one assignment in one course and get feedback from your student to see how that works. And if you can develop a sort of template, so you have a structure, you start with this, you highlight that, you mention that. So keep that kind of structures because it makes it easier for you to go through if you have a template working with. And let the students know that you're trying this out, because there are benefits to it, and realize that a number of them have mobile devices and it's easier for them to listen. So inform the students. And then you create a sample of your recording before you start using it with your students. So you test it out with your colleagues or with your family and see how that works. And then, of course, based on the feedback that you get, you can refine your approach and expand it over a period of time. But as with everything else, this is just another tool that we can use. We are keen on giving feedback to our students, feedback that is meaningful. And so we want to ensure that the different tools that we use are tools that emphasize the feedback aspect. And they're just that, tools, something that we can use. So as we look at this particular tool, I just want to encourage us to, as much as is humanly possible, explore, experiment with it, have fun, try it out. You may actually find other things that you didn't know that could work. And yes, we're focusing on feedback, but you can use it in other creative ways as well. Are there any questions, any comments before we wrap this up? My pleasure, Nika. Nika said thanks. And remember, it's completely free. So you don't have to worry about a paid version or a premium aspect that has other layers. This is Vocaroo as it comes. It's very simple, it's very clear, as you can see. All right. And I want to say thank you again for coming. And I do listen, if you use it, anyhow you use it, let me know. Just send us an email and let us know.